Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our special episode of Disclosure tonight, where we're delving into the intriguing and mysterious world of UFOs and non-human intelligence. Today, we have the honor of hosting an exceptional guest, Attorney Daniel P. Sheehan, a legal luminary and a formidable force in the area of constitutional law and public justice. With a career spanning decades, Danny has been at the forefront of some of the most groundbreaking cases in government history. But tonight, we're venturing beyond the courtroom and into the cosmos. Daniel brings to the table not only his legal expertise, but an insatiable curiosity and wealth of knowledge about the UFO phenomena and the compelling questions surrounding the non-human intelligence and what's ahead of us in 2024. His insights have been enlightening audiences across the globe, challenging our perceptions and expanding our understandings of the universe. So buckle up, viewers. We're about to embark on a journey filled with astonishing revelations and thought-provoking discussions. Get ready to have your minds blown as Daniel P. Sheehan takes us through the labyrinth of unknown, shedding light on some of the most fascinating and controversial understandings of our time. Don't miss a moment of this incredible interview. And on that note, I want to welcome in Danny Sheehan. Welcome, Danny. How you doing today? Do you prefer Danny or Daniel?
Danny. That's me.
Good to have you here, my friend. It's wonderful to have you back again. It's been a while since you've been here. Last time you were here with Lou, Sean Cahill, and yourself. We had a UFO roundtable talking about where Disclosure was and where we're headed for again. And now we're back a year and a half later talking about where Disclosure is headed in 2024. There's been a lot of things going on in 2023. Coming from your understanding of the situation in Washington, because this is a political issue more than anything, where do you think this is all headed in the year ahead?
Well, what I believe it's headed toward the American citizens kind of rising up behind the efforts of the Congress to get access to this information that's been not only being withheld from them, for the last 75 years, but they've been being lied to. Actively lied to by the people deep in kind of the deep secret elements of the government here. This is all a function of the National Security Act of 1947, in the creation at the end of the World War II of this kind of covert operation that goes on inside our government. And they've come to feel now, after 75 years, that somehow they're the government, instead of Congress, and even instead of some presidents, that they don't have to be briefed on, what these people are doing. They have a black budget that they don't report to Congress on. They now think that they're entitled to lie, just like when our office, as you may recall, we did the Major Federal Criminal Racketeering Act litigation against the off-the-shelf enterprise of Oliver North and others. And North, sat right there and told Congress to their face, well, sure, I lied to you. We lied to you. This is a covert program. We can't tell you, the Congress, about what we're doing because nobody can trust you. You'll go out and tell people. So we therefore not only don't have to tell you, we can lie to you. That's their position. When I talked to Colonel North when we were doing the litigation, he actually took the position that, well, the House of Representatives under the Constitution may control the purse strings, and so therefore they can refuse to give money to certain programs. But if we can get money from some other place, we can do anything we want in the area of foreign policy. And so they were going to the Prince of Bandar or something, to try to get billions of dollars so they could conduct their own private covert foreign policy. And this is a crisis that we're facing here with this national security state. They've ousted, they ousted Senator Frank Church because Frank Church chaired the Select Committee on Intelligence Abuse, looking into their political assassination activities, their drug smuggling to fund covert operations. And so all of a sudden, lo and behold, millions of dollars show up in his next senatorial campaign opposing him, and they unseat him. They did the same thing to Dick Clark in Iowa, Senator Clark, who opposed their covert operations in Africa, and they also unseated the United States senator in Indiana I mean, they target people, elected representatives who oppose their unconstitutional conduct, and then they unconstitutionally unseat them. So the kind of what we've experienced here, and we'll obviously get to it. We have a bill that was crafted carefully by the Senate Intelligence Committee. A 64-page bill setting up a very sound and responsible controlled disclosure process, so that the American people could be brought in on as much as they could safely be briefed on. But the United States Congress was going to be getting access to this information so they could oversee the executive branch, which is their constitutional authority to do. And now we send the bill over to the House side, and the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, who's basically on the payroll, of the private aerospace industry that is trying to back engineer the UFO technology to make weapons, ends up, sticking his thumb in the eye of everybody and stopping any enforcement mechanisms being in the bill. We'll get into that in some more detail, but I think that the major theme people need to understand here is that we're being confronted by a deep state, a deep element hidden deep in the bowels, of the national security state, that have been hiding this penultimate secret, that they've got here, that they're in possession of more than one extraterrestrial, non-human spacecraft. And they're in possession of the bodies that have been recovered from the spacecraft, and they're now trying to transform that technology into weapons. And therefore, they think that anybody who's trying to find out about the UFO issue ought to have their entire political career destroyed, or their family life destroyed, to be blackmailed, and so that's a situation that we're in now. And I think that we need to make it clear to the people that if 99% of us in the country want to know as much as we can about the existence of an extraterrestrial life form that's been coming and going from our planet, we ought to be allowed to get this information out of our government. Yeah. And if the people in the government won't give it to us, we need to replace them with somebody who will.
So kind of what you're describing is almost like you mentioned it, a deep state. We're dealing with another organization that's operating technically out of the executive branch, but at a level that's higher than a president, that's been there and surviving from Republican to Democrat to Republican over time, going back into 1947, which has operationalized itself and given itself powers of basically a fourth branch of government that has no accountability, unlimited budget, and no restrictions on law, and they can do what they want.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is, to state it simply, completely unconstitutional. And that's nowhere provided for in the Constitution. It was never contemplated by the founders. Every single one of the founders would roll over in their respective graves if they realized this started to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting situation, to say the least. Wes, do you have your hand up, my friend?
Well, I just wanted to first off welcome Danny to the show, and I wanted to point out to everybody, when you listen to Danny tonight, I think if you haven't heard him before, you're going to be incredibly impressed with what he has to say. And if you want to help support what he's doing, please check out the link that Thomas posted at the top of the chat that leads to the New Paradigm Institute. Danny's going to tell us some more about it tonight, but I just want to let you guys personally know I'm going to be going and putting in a donation tonight, and I encourage everybody to go, because this is a place where, oftentimes in our community, we're looking for ways where how can we make a difference. I'm convinced that Danny and his New Paradigm Institute are making that kind of difference. And so you can go there and see things that you can do to take action, like contacting your senators and congresspeople, but you can also help donate to help them do the work that they're doing. So I just wanted to put in a little plug for Danny, because I really believe in everything he's got going right now.
I appreciate that, Wes. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And if I can follow with a quick kind of follow-up question to what you guys were just talking about. Is it overstating things to say that this UFO issue is so entwined with this national security state and this kind of corruption, it feels like, that is set in because of it, that really, when we're talking about the work that's going on for UFO disclosure, in some ways, aren't we talking about kind of pulling our country back? I mean, I feel like that's one of the reasons that Democrats and Republicans both get behind this issue. And it feels to me like this is just so much more than even just the UFO issue. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, the fact is that the desire to find out about the UFO issue and the existence of an extraterrestrial civilization, to realize that we're not alone here in our universe, is probably the largest single political constituency in the entire country. I mean, it's bigger than just the people who support the abortion issue, or bigger than the people who all support civil rights for people. This is, everybody wants to know this. And so that when we drafted the bill up, the 64-page bill that was drafted by the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee, all 17 of the United States senators that are members of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republican senators and Democratic senators alike, all voted to pass this 64-page bill. It passed the Senate with flying colors, and went on over to the House side, and virtually all the members of the 435 members of the House of Representatives, like 430 of them or more, all wanted this, Republicans and Democrats alike. Until Turner, this guy, Michael Turner, who is the right-wing Republican chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, who comes from the congressional district where the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base is, where the original craft that was recovered in Roswell, New Mexico, back in July of 1947, where it was taken, to be back engineered. He's the congressman from that district, and he stuck his thumb basically right in the eye of everybody. And pushed back and threatened to, people to not have their programs approved and anything else. And so he has ended up taking 40 pages out of that 64-page bill. And so we were successful in only getting a 24-page bill passed. But it's important to remember that in that bill, the United States Congress has ordered the deep state people to turn over to the Congress the information that they have about the UFO issue and the extraterrestrial life and the non-human intelligence that is related to the UFO phenomenon. That has been achieved. We've gotten the command from Congress to do this. And President Biden, when he signed it into law, 2 nights ago, then the command came down from the president that they are to turn over the information that they have on the UFO issue and the issue of non-intelligent life connected to the UFO phenomenon, turn it over to Congress so that they have a right, at least the Intelligence Committee in the House and in the Senate, who have all the security clearances, have a right to have this information. So that's a major milestone that we have reached in this entire 75-year campaign. Basically, if we mark it from the date of the recovery of the UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico, on July 8th of 1947, we've been at this now for 75 years. And so we finally got Congress for the first time to actually pass a public law commanding the deep state to turn this information over to Congress. And so our job at the New Paradigm Institute, among other things, is to make sure that this law gets enforced. We're the Romero Institute, which is the 501c3 public interest organization that has set up the New Paradigm Institute. This is the same group that when the United States Congress passed the Boland Amendment back in March of 1984, prohibiting the Reagan-Bush administration from giving any aid, military aid, either direct or indirect, to the Contras down in South America or down in Central America. It had no enforcement mechanism in it. And so the CIA and the covert operations people went right ahead smuggling weapons to the Contras, and then smuggling cocaine back into the United States to help secretly pay for the weapons. And we caught them doing it. And so what we did is we mounted a major federal criminal racketeering act prosecution against them. and got a special prosecutor appointed. Judge Lawrence Walsh got appointed to dig into it. We had major congressional hearings that revealed what it is that they were doing. And we don't want to have to go through that entire complex process again. What we want to do is we want to have the Congress put enforcement mechanisms in, like they did not do in the Boland Amendment. They just issued the command without any enforcement mechanisms. So when we got this statute passed here by Congress and is signed into law by the president, what we're now doing is Senator Schumer, who is the majority leader of the Senate, and Mike Rounds, who is the Republican senator from South Dakota, probably the reddest state in the entire country, and Marco Rubio from Florida, and Christian Gillibrand from New York, all across the political spectrum have all demanded that there be enforcement mechanisms in this statute, and that there be timelines within which this information has to be revealed to Congress. Those are the next steps that we need to undertake. And that's why we're asking people to come to newparadigminstitute.org, and it will have all of your Congress people listed there. All you have to do is put your zip code in so that we know how to get in touch with you. And we get you the information instantaneously, not only about who your Congress people are and senators are and what their position is on this, but all you have to do is push a single button and in it goes. Your demand that there be public hearings held about the UFO issue, and that we have a right to demand that Congress get this information, and we have a right as the public to have access to the basic information about this ultimate secret, because this is a lot more than just a potential weapons system, source of information. That there's an old Sufi saying that when a pickpocket meets a saint, all he sees are his pockets, and that's what we're dealing with here. Because the national security state has been set up since 1947, the national security state, as soon as they found out that there was this extraterrestrial craft, seized the craft and decided, oh, look at this. Maybe we can make a secret missile system out of this. They're actually, the Radiance technology, one of the aerospace industry that has got access to some of this technology, they're the home of a thing called Prompt Global Strike. Is the code name for it, and they're trying to build a U.S. nuclear missile from launch in the United States can hit into the center of Russia or China inside of 2 minutes. It totally destroys the entire geopolitical structure that's been set up to protect our entire human family against total thermonuclear holocaust. But they believe it's their mission to try to have some weapon system to be able to establish, in their own words, full spectrum military dominance over the entire planet, and they've also said by their own language in the 1992 United States Defense Department Policy Planning Guidance document, they said that the purpose of the mission was to be able to maintain our continued privileged access to the strategic raw materials of the planet, So we find ourselves as the 5% of the whole population of our planet, who have the ability to try to rein in this national security state that is operating in our name to try to establish full spectrum military dominance over the planet. And when they recover an interstellar spacecraft, all they can think of is trying to figure out how to use the technology to build another weapon system.
And using our money to do it.
With our money, with our tax money, and then to keep us like mushroom, in the dark. That's and they're holding Congress in the dark. They lie to individual presidents if they don't think that they'll work with them adequately. They lie to the secretaries of defense. They lie to the secretaries of state, so that that we don't even have the capacity of our entire democratic society to participate in making decisions about what our relationship is going to be with this entire extraterrestrial civilization.
And even James Lukatsky, who was part of OSAP, Danny, James Lukatsky, who was part of OSAP, when he was out on some of the recent interviews out there, he'd said if he was brought in front of Congress and he was asked to testify, he would lie to Congress based on the type of clearance they have. And I know some people have mentioned something called an execution clause.
Well, what I'm saying is that we were all warned back in 1947 when Robert Lovett, who was a senior partner in the investment firm of Brown Brothers Harriman, wrote a letter to Truman saying that he wanted to have us set up some kind of a new agency that was more cunning and ruthless than any of our potential adversaries, and that was the origins of the Central Intelligence Agency, and they have garnered unto themselves the power and the self-proclaimed authority to engage in these kind of activities in complete distrust of the elected representatives of our constitutional government. They not only lie to us and to the news media, and they lie to the Congress people, they even lie to the presidents, about this, and think that they're entitled to make decisions. And look at the kind of decisions they make. They make a decision to take the craft that they find, an interstellar spacecraft, and take it into their custody and keep it secret and try to make weapons out of it. This has got to be stopped. The American people have to rise up and take the advantage of the fact that this is the largest constituency across political lines that we can possibly imagine. We have the support of virtually all the members of Congress, all the members of the House and the Senate, except for the handful of people that come from the direct congressional districts, where the aerospace industry pays for their campaigns. We've got to be able to show that we can do this, because the dangers that are represented in the steps that they're taking now are almost unparalleled. So we have to stop this, and we need to get a treaty drafted and signed, totally prohibiting every single nation in the world from utilizing any of the technology from the UFO craft for purposes of weapons production. Just like with the mustard gas. At the end of World War I, we got to just prohibit this, and we have to nip this thing in the bud before it gets further down the road. We've got to stop this thing.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, Danny, Thomas and I have had plenty of conversations on the show regarding the points that you're making now. And one of the points that Thomas and I have discussed in the past was, we believe that at one point you were suggesting, as a constitutional attorney, that you were going to challenge the 1947 National Security Act in court as being unconstitutional. Whatever happened with that? Are you still planning on moving forward with that?
What I was saying when we had that conversation is, I was saying that the availability of the Federal Criminal Racketeering Act is a template pursuant to which we should do an analysis of what it is that they're doing wrong. What is it that's wrong with what they're doing? And what we're pointing out is that that even under the separation of powers, in the Article 1 that created the United States Congress, and Article 2 that created the president and the executive branch, that the constitutional questions as to what level of discretion the president of the United States has to keep secrets from Congress needs to be evaluated. But when you have an element inside the executive branch that is lying even to the president, who is the actual constitutional officer under Article 2 of the Constitution, that they've gone completely out of control. And we have the evidence now that shows, as I mentioned, that they've unseated members of the United States Senate who they view to be inadequately supportive of their own independent agenda, which runs even contrary to the official agenda of the United States government, and what our foreign policies are that have been approved by the Senate. And so that this is a major constitutional crisis that we're actually confronted by, to say nothing about the major crisis that we're confronted by when we've now discovered that they're trying to use the technology from the recovered UFOs to make a weapon system that is going to totally destabilize the entire international global nuclear order on our planet for some short-term advantage that they plan to get. Anybody, who has a political IQ above room temperature knows that they'll have the technology. If we deploy that technology, they're going to end up having Russia's going to have it, and China's going to have it. Within a matter of a handful of years. But just like they got the information about the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb, and any weapon system that we create, they're going to have it.
Yeah. Do you think some of this stuff, though, Danny, could be beyond the craft? Because the way I look at it is we talk about the craft that's in the air. Just focusing on the craft itself is the psyop. There's something in the craft. There's infrastructure here on the planet that's for that craft. It's not just a reverse engineering of that craft to use it for weapons of war. It's taking that biological material and working with it, and companies like Monsanto potentially and others who have been taking this to do whatever they're doing with it, where there is not just the technological component to it. There's also this biological part from what the 5-6 species we have here on the planet now.
Well, I mean, just look what we're saying, Thomas, is that, you get a being from an extraterrestrial civilization that comes to our planet, and they're figuring out how to make some money on some pharmaceuticals by using the chemicals in their body. I mean, this is an extraordinary degeneration of our human consciousness, into the most reductionist understanding of these things. Let's see if we can get the technology from the craft to build weapons. Let's see if we can figure out what the chemical compositions of their physical bodies are, so we can figure out making more pharmaceuticals to make more money. Whereas, how about talking with these individual beings? How about finding out what their civilization is like? How about determining what kind of diplomatic relations we can have with them, and what kind of productive commercial operations we can have with them, rather than, just let's figure out how to use their bodies for profit.
Yeah, because eventually they're going to come back looking for the people who crashed. And when we say, well, they're not quite alive, where are they at? Well, they're in 5,000 pieces spread across our country right now. You're not going to get them back.
Well, the short of it is that, the national security state bureaucracy is not the right party to be making these decisions. They need to be under the control and supervision of our Congress. Yeah. Okay? And the President of the United States has to answer to the Congress for his activities in the national security area. There's the United States Supreme Court case, Youngstown Sheet and Tube, versus Sawyer. It was decided back in 1954 during the Korean War that during the Korean War, the United Steelworkers went on strike, and President Truman ordered them to go back to work because he thought that national security required being able to produce steel in order for us to engage in the Korean War. And so he ordered them to do it, and they didn't do it. And so he ordered the United States military to go in and seize control of the steel mills and actually operate the steel mills. And a major lawsuit was filed to stop that. It went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and Justice Jackson wrote the controlling opinion in the case, and he specifically stated, that when Congress has acted and chosen to place a specific limitation on the area of discretion of the president to deal in foreign policy, the power of the president is at its absolute lowest ebb, was their term. Okay. And that's what we need to get litigated now, that we need to determine that when the Congress of the United States orders the executive branch to, if they're going to spend any money that's been appropriated by the United States Congress, which is their unique constitutional authority, then they have a right to tell them that they can't do certain things with that money. And the president can't, by a signing statement or by any other activity, can't say, oh, by the way, we're not going to pay any attention to you. Okay? That the bottom line is that everything can't be predicated upon some financial judgment or who controls the money, because Oliver North has already told us, right across the table, the way they view that. Hey, we'll get the money somewhere else if you don't give it to us, which we found out they were smuggling drugs. They were smuggling cocaine, out of Colombia. They were smuggling heroin out of the Golden Triangle in Asia. The lengths to which the national security state operatives have gone to defy our constitutional order has come to an absolute high point here in the issue of the UFOs. Is that they've declared the right to not only take them into their unique custody, but to keep control of them, to lie about it, and to use it for weapons systems. This is destabilizing the entire global order. And we need to stand up as American citizens. We need to back Congress. We need to back the United States Senate that is demanding to have this information so they can exercise their constitutional authority, indeed their constitutional responsibility to rein in this and to seek a treaty that is going to actually prohibit any of the nation states of our planet from utilizing this technology for weapons. This is the bottom line of what has to get done.
Yeah. What it seems like is we've got money that comes from taxpayers, goes to Congress, goes to the DOD, goes to the military contractors who are now going back through the political action committees. They give a limited funding back to the people of Congress, like Mike, or the Mikes for that matter, Mike Turner, for going and stopping Congress from getting the information because they're coming with unlimited amounts of cash to keep it quiet, to keep it into it. So it's like we've got Congress working against itself.
Well, the national security state people have gone to further lengths. I mean, they have recovered tranches of gold, out of the Philippines that was buried there by General Yakushima, prior to World War II. They've recovered at least 12 of these tranches of gold, silver, and platinum, and secretly hidden it away and put it in. It's actually in Citibank right now, and they've written gold certificates on this and have undertaken covert operations utilizing this gold completely independent of the United States Congress, and not briefed in Congress about it or let Congress exercise any kind of authority over it, and not even told certain presidents that they have it. This is, I was the co-founder of the Harvard Civil Rights Law Review all the way back in 1968. I've spent my whole career, investigating these things, taking depositions of deep people under security clearances. And I've interviewed tons of people to find out about all this stuff. And we've set up the New Paradigm Institute to try to establish a whole new paradigm, one that operates under the constitutional principles of our government and gets access to the information about this extraterrestrial civilization and, in fact, is able to develop an entire new human worldview that actually integrates the reality of this much larger galactic civilization and where we fit into it. This is a major task that we have at the New Paradigm Institute. We've been designated in the Senate bill, as one of the agencies that was empowered to nominate people to an independent board that could review all the documentation and all the information that the national security state people held on this. And we are the only civilian government, basically, in the federal enclave on Capitol Hill. We're right next to the United States Senate Intelligence Committee. Yeah. We sit right between them and the United States Supreme Court. Our office is the New Paradigm Institute right on Capitol Hill, and we are the watchdog to try to make sure that this command issued under the new law is followed and that teeth is put back into this bill for enforcement power. And so that's why we need the support of people around the country to go to newparadigminstitute.org, and get all the information. All the information you need. Will be providing regular daily, updates on what the progress is that's being made. And you can help us, and it's not just giving us money, which, we account for. We have a complete, open, transparent accounting system of how it's being used, but you can also participate in setting up action teams in your own congressional district. When we did the Iran-Contra case, we had 435 different action teams, one in each of the congressional districts all around the country, that was jumping up and down trying to get them to stop shipping weapons to the Contras that have been declared by the International Court of Justice to be political outlaws, and to stop them from smuggling massive loads of cocaine into the United States in order to secretly pay for those weapons. We have done this in the past. We've stepped up to this particular issue. I've been working on this since 1977 when I was general counsel at the United States Jesuit headquarters in Washington, D.C., in their social ministry office, in charge of formulating public policy for the Jesuit order here in the United States. This is a long haul that we've been at here.
Hey, Danny, just if you wouldn't mind going into this a little bit more, I think one of the things that when we were talking backstage that really impressed me about the kind of work that you guys are doing at the New Paradigm Institute is that you're really tackling this, like you were just describing, from a lot of levels. I know, just reading the chat, everybody's super excited about what you're having to say, but I know we also tend to get jaded because we see things like lobbyists coming in. And one of the things that your New Paradigm Institute is able to do is actually dedicate some of its resources to lobbying. Is that right?
That's right. Under the Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, we are authorized to spend up to 20% of all of our annual income on lobbying with regard to specific pieces of legislation. We're vastly below that percentage, because we have other projects as well. We have the Lakota People's Law Project up in South Dakota and North Dakota that was organizing there to represent the Native tribes there to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline from being put right through their sole water supply up there. We've gotten legislation passed in California to assist in giving subsidies to low-income families to be able to get electric vehicles and stuff to try to reduce the pollution in California. We've done all kinds of different projects. So this project, the New Paradigm Institute, is one of our projects. And so that the limited amount of time that we spend lobbying on this one particular piece of legislation is a comparatively small portion of the actual finances that we have. But what we need to do is we need to hire additional staff. We need to hire staff to reevaluate all of the different information now. It's one thing for people to come forward and say, oh, I had a UFO land in the field next to me and I was taken aboard. And people laugh at them and think that they're crazy, and they tell them to go get a mental test. But the bottom line is now the United States Congress has basically gotten open testimony from people deep inside the national security state saying, oh, by the way, we're in possession of at least one intact extraterrestrial UFO vehicle and the bodies of a non-human species, highly technologically developed and highly intelligent, so now people need to take a look at all of those previous stories about encountering these vehicles to determine what the implications are. And so the New Paradigm Institute needs to have an entire staff of people that are going to be gathering together all of these reports, all of this information, and presenting it in the same type of credible way that we presented information in the Karen Silkwood case, that stopped the construction of private nuclear power plants in the United States because we caught them smuggling 98% pure bomb-grade plutonium to Israel to make a nuclear weapon, and to Iran under the Shah, both in violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. We put the stuff together to stop them from pumping all the radioactive water into the Susquehanna River from the 3 Mile Island facility. I was legal counsel for the New York Times in the Pentagon Papers case, to get to publish all 47 volumes of the top secret Pentagon Papers after the Nixon administration screamed and hollered and said, oh, if you reveal any of the information in these documents, it's going to be absolutely catastrophic for our foreign policy. And I said, no, it's not. It may require you to withdraw your military troops from Southeast Asia because you've been lying to Congress and lying to everybody about what you're doing there. But we've been at this now for 50 years. So I think what we've done is we've taken all of the credibility that we've developed over all those years and all those cases. I was the one that initiated the case that established the right of journalists to protect their confidential news sources that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. So we've been at this for quite some time. What we're trying to do is to bring to bear all of that experience that we have to put together a staff for the New Paradigm Institute that is able to reevaluate all of the different information that we've had in the public realm about this, to prism it now through the ratification of the existence of this phenomenon by our Congress now, and get this information out to people in a completely credible manner, and to develop this new alternative human worldview that actually integrates the reality of this larger civilization that we find ourselves in, to come to grips with the fact that we are not only not located in the geophysical center of the entire universe. I think we got past that problem with Copernicus, in the Galileo back in the 15th century. But the reality is that we're not even at the pinnacle of the pyramid of all biological life in the universe. And we're going to have to come to grips with that reality and integrate that into a whole new worldview for our human family, so that we understand the legitimate place that we have in the galaxy, and go forward from there.
Hey, Danny, on that point, because I don't think everybody's aware of your background, but one of the fascinating things that I think you also are able to lend insight into is what will be the reaction of people and of the world's religions, because you trained as a Jesuit and used to work, or maybe you still do work with Jesuits. Is that right?
Yeah, I was general counsel at the United States Jesuit headquarters in their social ministry office, which is the Office on Public Policy. It was my responsibility, along with Father William Davis in that division, to formulate public policy with regard to all 15 of the cabinet-level departments of the United States government and all of the 8 major agencies of the government. That we dealt with thermonuclear weapons policy. We're the ones that actually had one of our staff people go to Russia to meet originally with Brezhnev, and then with Andropov, and finally with Gorbachev, to help persuade Gorbachev to stand down from the Cold War, to step back away from the precipice of nuclear war, and start to disassemble the nuclear warheads of the Soviet Union. We've been at this for some time. And so that also at the Jesuit headquarters, one of the things that I was assigned to do was to meet with the top 50 scientists at the SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, and brief them in a closed-door 3-hour session on the theological implications of contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Now, I'm the one that, when the Catholic Church issued its famous statement about this, saying that now, in light of the discovery of more and more of these new exoplanets, it is now clear that much sooner than had been previously anticipated, we're going to be discovering life elsewhere in the universe. And therefore, the time has now arrived to begin the extraordinarily important conversation among the laity of what the philosophical and theological implications are for this, for our whole human family. So I've been there in these discussions, right from the very beginning. And what we need to do is have a single focused institute now for the New Paradigm Institute to be able to provide all of these services to our citizens, which the Congress should be doing. But until the Congress is willing to take this up and fulfill its constitutional obligations, we need to have a citizens group, an organization of citizens that is going to be doing this for ourselves. We're also going to be teaching courses to people, degree granting courses for getting your bachelor's degree, getting your graduate school master's degree, or even a PhD degree with full credit in extraterrestrial studies, so that you can study this entire phenomenon, look into the entire history of it, become aware of what the implications are of the national security state having concealed and hidden this information from us for 75 years. This is a full-blown institute that is going to be providing this range of services for our American people and for the people of the world. And so that you have an opportunity to basically get in on the ground floor of this, and you can participate in more ways than just making contribution to this. You can participate as part of the staff. You can set up these action teams inside your congressional district. We're going to have 435 of these different action teams to be able to deal with your individual congressperson to get him or her to do what it is that needs to be done in this area. So that's what the New Paradigm Institute is here for, and that's why we've come to talk with you tonight about what we're doing, so that you can get all the information that you want about this. I'm in the process of putting together an internal memo right now on the 100 basic facts pertaining to the UFO issue and the extraterrestrial intelligence to let you know what it is that, based on my 50 years of work in this area, that I've come to know from one source or another. Deathbed interviews of people from Project Blue Book, on life support tubes, finally coughing up the information they have, about what they know about, of having been at S4, face to face with an extraterrestrial being who was being interviewed by members of the United States Air Force, telepathically and taking notes from what the being was saying to them. That we know about this information. We're more than happy to share it with you if you just come to the newparadigminstitute.org and not only push the button for take action, but push the button to get information about everything that you'd want to know about this subject that we've discovered so far.
Danny, if I could just emphasize what you just said, because I don't think people may have fully processed it, because that was really, this is powerful, everybody. One, I will take up your challenge. I will try to set up one of these action groups here in Texas, because I think this is amazing. And one of the things that people, if you're listening, we're always asking, how can we get involved, and how do we get access to the information that we could use to help make a convincing argument? And Danny is telling us that's what he's doing. And I think this is remarkable. I mean, can you imagine all of us out there lobbying our Congress people with Danny's information? We can do a lot of good. So please, if you feel like you want to do your part, this is a great way to take action, I think.
It's important for people to realize that we stand on the threshold right now. The 4 generations of us that are alive right now tonight, we stand on the threshold of establishing the protocols pursuant to which we're going to be dealing with an extraterrestrial civilization for the next 10,000 years of our human family, assuming we don't blow ourselves up, or destroy our entire planet by polluting it, with biochemicals. That we stand on the threshold of being the generations who are going to participate in actually formulating our policies with this extraterrestrial civilization. So I'm always amazed at why people can say, well, I'm actually more interested in whether the San Francisco 49ers won the football game last night. The bread and circuses that are all put out in front of you to try to distract you from important issues like this, that you're gonna have to tell your grandchildren, someday, what were you doing? What were you doing when the national security state was trying to co-opt this entire area and possibly put us in a war footing with the entire extraterrestrial civilization? Because they were bent on trying to figure out how to beat them out and getting access to the raw materials out in outer space. You got to understand, these people have a very limited point of view. I should tell you a story that Hal Puthoff told me, that he was meeting. Hal's been working on this for decades, longer than anybody. And Hal was meeting with the people in the Clinton administration, in the President Clinton's administration, about reflecting upon whether the time had arrived when they should come forward with more and more of this information about the UFO phenomenon. And he was meeting with the science advisor for President Bill Clinton and asking the question, what is the problem here? Who's pushing back against all of us of getting this information out? What is the mindset that's really preventing us from getting this information out? And the science advisor said to him, here, let's step outside, Hal, and let me have a conversation with you. So they go outside and they're walking along, and the science advisor for President Clinton has said, look, let me tell you what the nature of the problem is that we're facing. And I can do this by telling you a story. There's a story about this old man who was coming home from being out somewhere, and he's walking through the field to his house, and he looks down in the grass and he sees a little light like in the grass. He looks down and he sees a frog in the grass. and there's a little light on the top of the head of the frog, and he bends down and picks up the frog, and he sees that the little light on the top of the head of the frog is actually a crown. And he looks at this, and the little frog looks up at him and says, look, I'm not really a frog. I'm a princess, and I've been turned into a frog by an evil sorcerer. And all you have to do is kiss me, and I'll turn back into this beautiful princess, and we'll be married and have wonderful children, and you'll be able to rule this wonderful realm with me. And the old man looks at her and said, actually, at my age, I think I'll settle for having a talking frog, and puts it in his pocket and goes home. So what we're saying, that's what the science advisor said, when it came to what's the problem that we've got here. What the problem is that we're under the auspices of a national security state that can't see past the short-term advantage that they can gather as one bureaucracy inside the government, in avoiding the entire wealth of value that we can obtain from learning our real place in the universe, understanding the theological implications of this. We're going to be in dialogue through the New Paradigm Institute, through the Jesuit order that I spent 10 years being the chief counsel at their social ministry office, in communication with Francis, who is the first Jesuit in history ever to be made Pope, reaching out to the pontiff, of the Eastern Orthodox Church, Kirill, in Moscow, reaching out and talking with Bartholomew, in the Greek Orthodox Church, meeting with the head mufti of the Islamic world, meeting with all the Jewish leaders and other indigenous tribes. We represent the Sioux Nation, the great Sioux Nation, the Lakota tribes, that to bring all of the spiritual leaders of our planet together to start reformulating, the understanding that they have communicated to the laity about the relationship between our human species and the rest of the entire universe. That there are other dimensions of reality, that they have kept to themselves all this time, thinking that the great unwashed laity are not intelligent enough to understand all of this. But those policies were formulated by the Catholic Church back in the medieval periods, when 99% of the people were completely illiterate, and they didn't even go more than 50 miles from the place that they were born. And so the people that were in on some of these secrets formulated a extremely dumbed down version of what reality really is, and they made up a lot of mythological stories to feed to the people at that level of education, and they've ossified at that point. And Francis is struggling to try to bring the theology into the modern era, which the most important single aspect of the modern era is not only the realization that there's an entire extraterrestrial civilization that we find ourselves in the midst of, but the fact of the matter is there's a direct relationship with human consciousness in the actual way in which inchoate quantum fields in the quantum realm actually collapse into material manifestation and creating the reality in the material world that we deal with. That was just a short version of what the issues are here. But what I'm saying is that you really need to understand the profound importance of this moment that we find ourselves in, that are going to compel not only all of the religious institutions on our planet to elevate the consciousness of the members of their faith community into understanding the more mystical dimensions of their tradition, which all of them have, but have been being withheld from the people. And we have a national security state that's been attempting to keep the deep secrets relating to this secret. We've now come to the moment where all of this is potentially coming to the fore, right at the point in time where everything seems to be getting out from under control. We have massive carpet bombing, of Gaza going on here by the state of Israel, which has been created by the Western powers, back at the end of World War I and World War II, as a projection of Western military power into the Middle East to claim control over their oil fields, and to control the Suez Canal. I mean, this is not rocket science that we're dealing with here, but most of the people have been lulled into a position of thinking that's more important for them to know who won the recent football game, or or what's going on between two political parties arguing over who the senator is going to be from their state, or whether or not one of the past presidents is going to get indicted. I mean, that people are completely taken up with these kind of shorter visions that we need to elevate people above. We have to transcend these kind of conflicts that are generated among our different subgroups and ascend to an entire new paradigm worldview that views us all as one organic family, not just on our planet, but with other sentient living beings that are in our galaxy. This is an extraordinary moment in our human history that is transhistorical, if in fact you will participate in this with us. That's what I'm here to talk about tonight.
What you're talking about, it's truly not just something that's part of the United States, it's something that's global. But if we look back in time to the late 1970s, Sir Eric Gary, Prime Minister of Grenada, led an effort to enlist the United Nations into a UFO inquiry. This effort culminated in a November 1978 presentation to a UN special committee by Gary and several prominent UFO researchers at that time to propose UFO investigations in an information agency within the UN. Now, Gary, under pressure from the U.S., had his proposal shut down. But more importantly, after that had happened, there was a revolutionary coup which toppled his regime in Grenada. And he lost any further chances to bring it forward, showing that whatever happened, not sure if it was tied to it, but when other people in other countries have tried to get something to go on a global effort, they've been shut down.
Well, I mean, we need to understand that that one of the dire secrets that are being withheld by the national security state people now is what the energy source is that propels these extraterrestrial vehicles. And the reality is that this could, in fact, offer an alternative to the petroleum in our country, which they're fighting wars over in the Middle East right now and slaughtering tens of thousands of people over ultimate control of the Middle Eastern oil fields. There could be an alternative energy source that stops polluting the planet so that we don't have to keep being told by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change every 2 years about how much closer and closer we're coming to a tipping point where our entire planet, our whole climate system is going to collapse in the face of this kind of pollution. That we've got to understand that the opportunity that is presented to us here, if we will get ourselves together here, and if our citizens will rise to the occasion and take peaceful, aggressive, democratic action together to demand that our elected representatives get this information over into their hands and share the basic information with our American people. So in a democratic society, we can participate in formulating the relationship that we're going to have with this extraterrestrial civilization. This is our obligation as people alive at this unique point in history, that transcends almost every other period of history here. And so the real intense appearance of these UFOs, as we know from the records, started appearing back in July of 1945, at Yucca Flats and the White Sands Proving Grounds, where we were detonating the first nuclear device. That UFOs started showing up, and we know this from the direct testimony of one of the range officers there, Colonel Philip Corso, who went on to become the head of foreign technology evaluation at the Pentagon. I have personally seen the little 8mm movie, little black and white home movie that he made to leave for his grandchildren after he died, to show to them about what he saw there. And he actually encountered one of these UFO vehicles and the beings that were in it. And so that we have deathbed testimony of people, testifying about their knowledge of this whole program. And we have this at the Institute, and we can make this available to you. And we're going to be working in direct partnership with Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan is the author of 2 volumes of a major work that's called UFOs in the National Security State. And Richard Dolan is one of our full-time research advisors at the New Paradigm Institute. And we're going to bring in all of the other different people who've spent a lifetime working in these areas and found themselves in a situation where they have to live from one convening to another, one international UFO Congress to the next, contact in the desert to the next, UFO conference, and living on pennies to basically try to bring this information to the people. And they've now succeeded collectively in getting the United States Congress to pass this law. And so that we're now in a position as the New Paradigm Institute to bring all of that knowledge together and codify it and make it available for you so you can share it inside your own action group, in your own congressional district, in your own city, in your own town, that you can become the salon of your area to bring people together to show this information to them, and demonstrate to them that this isn't tinfoil hat stuff. This is actual information that our United States Congress has demanded be turned over to them. We have some significant amount of that information available already, and we have vetted it. We're taking care to make certain that the things that we maintain to be true are verified. We're applying the Rule 11 rule of reliability that is set forth in Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, just like any kind of litigation, just as though we were putting together a major federal complaint, and make it available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a question coming in from a former colleague on the channel. He's wanting to know if, a little bit off the topic for a bit here. There's been a lot of discussion about the Galactic Federation. Are you aware if the Galactic Federation out there would be willing to accept humanity if we meet their expectations, unless there has been some kind of communication between us and them that you might be aware of?
At this point, I'm perfectly aware of specific assertions that have been made about specific contacts and specific communications that have been undertaken. We're in the process right now of vetting all of this information. We're going to bring to bear professional. I was also in the #1 criminal defense firm in the country, in F. Lee Bailey's office, and we learned at that point to use what they call psychological stress evaluators. This is a particular super high quality lie detector, of being able to place people on the psychological evaluation machine and to be able to test the actual tension in their vocal cords in response to questions. We're going to undertake purely professional investigatory activities to be able to vet some of this information, where people will come forward and say, that I was there, at a particular United States Air Force base on a day when the UFO landed, and officers from our unit went out onto the tarmac and talked with these beings, and there's movie footage of this. They kept a camera of it. We're going to dig into all of these things like I would any major litigation that we ever engaged in. But that we're not going to be confronted by the fact that the United States government has sovereign immunity against being sued in their own courts. So what we're going to do is go to the court of public opinion and bring this information to them. That we're actually even willing to have a major program where we put regular citizens in a jury box and bring in the experts to testify live, on live stream television. Here's all the experts on both sides. Here's the jury room that's been selected, from people in the local area. Here are cameras inside the jury room, listening to regular citizens discussing the individual witnesses and what they thought about them. And you can have people participate online. What did you think about the credibility of this one particular witness, et cetera. These are all things that we have available now to us at the New Paradigm Institute, if we can get your support. If you want to participate in this, people who are able to help produce television shows like this. We've got some communication going on with Catherine Bigelow's firm down in Washington, D.C., or down in Los Angeles. she's the one that won the Academy Award for The Hurt Locker. She's the one that did Zero Dark 30. She also did Detroit, the big major docudrama. That we're in communication with people. We did the Karen Silkwood movie that got the whole information out about Karen Silkwood case that we did, that we won the $10.5 million for her children on, that we've got access to all kinds of contacts and people, but we need the support of the American people to come forward. Our experience has been, if you build it, they will come. It's the field of dreams here. We're putting together the field of dreams for the American public through the New Paradigm Institute right there on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where we can gather all of the information. We can bring together the staff that's necessary. We can do the kind of media productions to make them available for nonprofit. This is a total nonprofit operation, that we're not going to engage in things like the To the Stars Academy did of, let's have private investors in this and figure out how you can make a lot of money on this. Nothing like that is going on here. This is a full-scale public interest, nonprofit operation run for and by the citizens of our country. And that's what the New Paradigm Institute is. And we want your participation. We want your help. We want your skills all to be brought together. We'll have people to coordinate, a volunteer coordinator who can get your offers, what your skill sets are, what kind of time you have available, what kind of travel ability do you have? Can you come to Washington, D.C. and work with us there? Then we'll come out to your action teams that you establish in your own county or in your own congressional district, and bring experts out to present there to your local citizenry. We're going to get all this stuff coordinated. We know how to put together these things. I mean, it's one of the advantages in having gone to Harvard College and Harvard Law School. They at least teach you how to run operations like this. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring it to the American people for free.
Absolutely. Just a quick
excellent. And I wanted to add, Danny, that you have our full support here on the show and on the platform. Anything that you want to bring out publicly for the public to see, we'll be supportive of that and help you in that endeavor from the Paradigm Institute to bring this information out. That goes without saying. I have a quick question from an esteemed UFO researcher in the audience for over 35 years, Tom Whitmore. And specifically to your opinion legally, he wants to know, are major defense contractors withholding material and information regarding UFOs from their stockholders and the SEC? What are your thoughts on that, Danny?
Oh yeah, I think that it violates their fiduciary duty to their stockholders. It also is in violation of the antitrust laws. It's unfair competition. It's actually taking advantage of the secret partnership that they have with the operations director to the Central Intelligence Agency, who are deploying, covert operatives into the field to threaten and to intimidate people, which is witness intimidation. It's a violation of the Federal Criminal Racketeering Act, and that they're in coalition with them, they're in partnership with them, and they become personally liable under the Federal Criminal Racketeering Act. So that's why we're organizing and structuring the information that we're gathering under the template of the federal RICO statute, so that we can lay this out as a well-pleaded set of charges and accusations that we're making against the government-private partnership. This is a criminal enterprise. This is in violation not only of the Constitution, but is in violation of numerous federal criminal statutes and antitrust statutes, and violations of their own fiduciary duty to their own stockholders. So there's a panoply of unlawful activity that's involved here, which is one of the main reasons that they keep citing in my private conversations with them for not wanting all this information out. And one of the major things they're worried about is what the repercussions are going to be for not only the government agents that have been involved in this, but also the private contractors that have been involved in this, and that they're pleading for immunity. Are we, the UFO community, are willing to grant them immunity if they'll come forward and talk. We offered them a mechanism for coming forward and talking in the 64-page bill that was drafted by the Senate and passed unanimously by the Senate Intelligence Committee. They aren't going to get too many more offers like this. We're going to come back and start asking Schumer and Rounds and the other people to put the enforcement teeth back in and to put in the independent board to be able to review these things so that it's not under the aegis of the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence. These are the people that have been lying to the country for the last 75 years. What we want to do is have it under independent control, and we're going to give them another opportunity here to strengthen this bill. But at the same time, we're not going to sit around waiting for that. We're going to come forward and start exposing this information ourselves. And we're going to put all the pressure that we possibly can bring to bear on the Senate Intelligence Committee to hold public hearings and bring forward some of the 40 different people, 40 different whistleblowers who are similar to David Grush, who have direct knowledge about this program and what's been going on in the program, and direct knowledge about the spacecraft and direct knowledge about the extraterrestrial occupants of the UFOs, and start bringing them forward in public hearings until the other side gives in and says, okay, good. Let's set up a controlled disclosure campaign plan and roll this out to the American people, into the world, in a safe and responsible manner, because if they don't, we're just going to keep on coming. And we're going to keep on coming anyhow until they agree.
Absolutely.
Those are very good points.
Yeah, so circling back, if I could, though, Mike, I wanted to get back just to follow up. Before, Danny, we were just talking about different kind of things going on, different expectations, Galactic Federation. One of the cases you brought up, it sounded like it was similar to the Holloman Air Force Base setting that happened. Are you aware of any credible over-communication with the Galactic Federation that may have taken place to understand what their expectations are and what the acceptance of humanity would be for us to get into it?
Well, at this point, I understand that's the re-putting of your question that you put to me that I didn't quite answer last time. Having done 1,000 depositions, I know the question again when I hear it. Okay, bottom line is that we do not know. Yeah, when I say we at the New Paradigm Institute do not know yet exactly how credible all of the information is about the particular juridical structures that the different star systems have with each other. It is clear that there are at least 5 different species that have been credibly recognized as having coming and gone from here. And it's unlikely that they're from the same planet. And it's unlikely that they're probably even from the same star system. So that there's some sort of presumption that we're operating under, that there's some sort of coordination. Now, I had an interview with one particular fellow, the fellow I mentioned that was on his deathbed, with all the life support systems in him. And he called me and said he wanted to confess, basically, to a Jesuit, ideally, of what he had known all this time. I made it clear to him that I was not, in fact, a Jesuit priest, that I left the Jesuit headquarters after 10 years because the bottom line is they wouldn't allow women to be priests. They wouldn't, and I didn't understand what being a priest really was if women were somehow incapable of it biologically of being a priest. I didn't quite understand what it was, and a number of other issues that had come up. But the bottom line is that we need to vet that information. This fellow actually told me in detail about him having been present at S4 with his commander in Project Blue Book, and his commander was having a face-to-face communication with a live extraterrestrial being that was there. He personally wouldn't go near the being because he thought he was demonic. And so he was a major Christian fundamentalist, this fellow. But he said he was talking with the staff that were there that were attending to this being, and he had gone through a number of interviews where he was relating information telepathically to the staff, and they had these note cards of things. And he said that he came from a group of people that were from different star systems. But they all worked together in a coordinated way to go around determining what the state of development was of sentient species on different planets in the galaxy. When he was asked, well, who was the source of authority behind this kind of exploration that was going on? And he said, well, it's something like what you people might refer to as God, but it's a lot different than you think. and this fella said, I refused to ever tell anybody about that because I didn't believe him. He said, I didn't believe it was true because I thought he was satanic. And so I never even reported it to my superiors. He was telling me about this on his deathbed. So I don't quite know yet how to completely evaluate all that. He didn't use any reference like the Galactic Federation or anything. He just told me that much, And so and with regard to the Holloman Air Force Base thing, I had a direct personal conversation with Edgar Mitchell. And up at the Institute for Noetic Sciences, that Georgie Zimmer, was a dear friend of mine who helped set that up, and others. And I was sitting along with Sergio Lube, a friend of mine, talking with Edgar Mitchell. And Edgar said that, look, one of my very best friends in the whole world told me that he was there when the 3 UFOs arrived. And 2 of them hovered, and one of them came down and landed on the tarmac. And these officers, Air Force officers, and lay people in suits went out onto the tarmac and began talking with them. And then they went into one of the hangars and had some sort of a set of discussions. And then the little being came back out and got in the thing, and they left. And he said that there's footage of it. There's actual film footage of this having happened. He said, and I know that my best friend would never have lied to me about that. He said, but he has seen the film of that. Now, so that is the closest thing that I've gotten to, a second-hand account by a very credible person about the Holloman incident that allegedly took place. But as having access to a cadre of professional investigators, which I do, that we've done these on these cases. I said I was in F. Lee Bailey's office. We had an entire firm of 40 Class A licensed private investigators, experienced professional investigators that were at our disposal in the cases. And what I did is I've recruited a number of them, to come and work with us as consultants to help do the kind of professional investigations that we need to have done here. And this is how we've been able to find out the information that we found out in these various cases. And I remember that Oliver North and Dick Secord were having the conversation about who the hell are these people? At the Christic Institute, which is who we were at the beginning. Where are they getting all their information? How come they know all this stuff? And it turns out that they suspected that Felix Rodriguez, who was the head of the Ilopango weapons supply operations for the Contras, may actually be our source because we had such good information. We had the tail numbers of the airplanes. We had the shipping invoices on the weapons. We had the serial numbers on the weapons. We had all that information, and they could never quite figure out. Well, it turns out it was Rafael Chichi Quintero, who was the number 2 guy under Felix Rodriguez, who was our source on that. But nobody could ever imagine how we could get to a guy like that. But we got to his CIA case officer, who was telling us all about it. So we've got these kind of sources, that I don't walk around, bragging about all of our sources, but people have seen the kind of cases that we've done, and they've always assumed that we have some kind of access to important information, which we then call the people to the stand and put them under oath, under subpoena power, and compel them to answer these questions. And that's that we're going to try to get that done here because we want to have an independent review commission or review board with subpoena power that has the capacity to conduct investigations into each of these specific allegations so we can ascertain, I say we, the American people, can ascertain the credibility of this information. And that's what the New Paradigm Institute is going to be doing, among the other things that I've mentioned.
Amazing stuff. If I could, just 1 second before I get to Wes Decker. Just as a quick reminder for everyone who's watching a broadcast right now, if you're having a good time, we're at an hour and 23 minutes into this 2-hour interview with Danny Sheehan, an unbelievable opportunity to hear some great words of wisdom and insight coming from Danny. If you're having a good time, folks, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. We have 459 people watching, only 241 likes. And if you're not happy, give us a thumbs down. We'll take one or the other. Hopefully we'll take this one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and please hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you as a regular here on Disclosure tonight. Danny, this has been one unbelievable conversation with you so far. You are an amazing resource, and your knowledge is at the top of the level, my friend. Wes Decker, you have a question.
Yep. First, I just want to pass along the compliments from the people in our chat to you, Danny. You've just been getting amazing feedback, and I think I speak for most everyone here when they say they're really grateful that you've come. And I think we're going to have a lot of traction for you on the New Paradigm Institute. We've got, in fact, when we get off the air, I've got an offer for you from the APEC group and some others who have, the ability to help get your message out even further. So I want to just thank our amazing audience. We've got one of the best audiences around. So
absolutely.
Great. I appreciate that, Wes.
Yeah. And then my next question for you is, what do you see happening over the next 3 months in terms of disclosure and then, specific activities of the Paradigm Institute?
Okay, the first order of business is, I need to go back into Washington, D.C. About January 3rd, when they all come back from their holiday break. I know that between January 3rd and January 19th, I mentioned they're going to be preoccupied in trying to get the final budget resolution passed, the full-scale budget resolution. They're having this big major fight, of attaching any potential funding to Ukraine with a commensurate amount of funding to the southern border security. And that's been postponed from the end of 2023 in preparing the budget for 2024. They kicked the can down to January 19th. So I know that they're going to be pretty much preoccupied with that issue. We're not going to be able to get a lot of attention from them. But starting on the 20th of January, when they get that thing finally resolved, we're going to be on them with all of the contacts and communications we've gotten from people all between now and that time to recall for them, here's all the people that have contacted you, because we have a record of that. We have a record of how many people that we've contacted have contacted you. So we know that they're demanding hearings on this. And so we're going to be focusing on the Senate Judiciary Committee because Schumer, Chuck Schumer, the majority leader of the Senate, and Michael Rounds, both following the passage of this law, this 24 pages of our 64 pages got passed into law, containing, all importantly, the command that they turn over, that the deep state people turn over to Congress this information, that we're going to insist upon having hearings convened by the Senate Intelligence Committee to hold public hearings about putting back into that statute the enforcement guidelines that I've mentioned, with subpoena power, with the right of eminent domain to be able to take back into the custody of the United States government all of the craft that have been put into the hands of any of these private aerospace corporations that have been trying to back engineer these things, so that there's no dispute about who owns the technology here. And so that's going to be our first order of business. The second order of business is we're going to be convening a major gathering at the National Council of Churches in Washington, D.C. at 110 Maryland Avenue. We're going to be gathering religious leaders, ideally from all 54 of the major religious denominations here in the United States, to reach out to global religious leaders around the planet to convene a major summit conference to take place around June 21st of having people from all the different religious denominations of our planet coming together to start holding a summit meeting on how they are all going to commit to elevating the teaching in their own religious traditions to allow their people, the laity of their people, in on the secrets that are possessed by the different religious denominations in the mystical realms, having to do with the influence of human intention on the manifestation of material reality. Rather than just talking about how Jesus can turn water into wine, or he can, walk on water and stuff. The reality is that there's information around throughout the world of human beings being able to do things like this, that there are capacities that our human species has that have not yet been recognized, and they've been kept secrets, even by the religious institutions, and they hide them behind mythology and in the Kabbalah and in other secret documents that we want them to be willing to come forward with, to share this, including, of course, the information that they have about the UFO phenomenon. Now that's likely to devolve primarily to the Catholic Church because they've been able to maintain a set of records at the Vatican archives about this. And I've had conversations with Johann. Johann Ix is the head of the Vatican archives, and I've had this conversation with him. I've had conversations with Jose Gabriel Funes, who was the head of the Papal Observatory. I've had direct conversations with these people, and so we're in the process of trying to convene this June 21st summit conference of all the world religious leaders. These are all things that you can all participate in. You can all work with us on this. I mean, people can say, holy mackerel, that must be pretty exciting, getting to do all that stuff. Well, I can tell you it is, but it's also a lot of hard work. And the more people that we have helping us who have particular skill sets that are all going to be important. Writers, people that can go on television shows, can write letters to their editor in the local newspapers, that can, go and meet with their congressmen and senators. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Our job is to figure out what all those things are, so that because the most important thing that people always say when they hear this, they go, holy mackerel, what can I do? I've been trained into thinking I can't do anything but sort of eat and spend money, and I go out and shop, and to try to help the economy, but we'll help you. That I don't mean to sound paternalistic or anything, but we can help you by knowing how you can interface with your local representatives, have city council meetings held in your town, getting resolutions passed. We got resolutions passed all across the country by city councils prohibiting the nuclear industry from carrying radioactive materials, waste materials from the 103 nuclear power plants through their communities, because they wanted to move them all to a deep underground well in Yucca Mountain. And what we did is we organized people all around the country to go to their local city councils and get a resolution passed declaring their county to be a nuclear-free zone. So they couldn't carry any of those nuclear materials through their county. And we did that. And so there's all kinds of things that local people can do locally. But we have to bring to bear the collective conscience of our American people on our elected representatives. And we have to make it clear that unless they respond to what it is that we are demanding that they do, there are going to be elections coming up in 2028, and in 2026, to replace them. And we're going to have to recruit people to be candidates on this and a number of other issues relating to the national security state, that we want the national security state to be disbanded. We want to have the Soviet Union or Russia to respond. We want China to respond. And we want them engaged in an international treaty discussion to prepare for the outreach to this extraterrestrial civilization as a planetary culture, not as one particular nation state that's trying to get an advantage, to get kind of an inside deal made, with the extraterrestrials, so that we can get an advantage, by getting special access to their technology or something. We've got to understand how we're going to go about doing this, and we need your help to help formulate those plans. We can make proposals, We can tell you why the particular proposal that we're making seems reasonable to us based upon our particular expertise that we may have in some of these areas. But we want to have an open, transparent, democratic process established here for our people to come together to basically seize upon this opportunity in the face of the present crises that we face here. You know, when we have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change of the United Nations telling us, you know, that we're on the brink of total disaster here. You know, that if we don't draw down our emissions of carbon into the atmosphere to reduce our global mean temperature to no more than 1.5 degrees centigrade, you know, by the period of, you know, of 2040, you know, that we are absolutely doomed. You know, that people need to understand. They're talking about the melting of not just the polar ice caps, but melting of the frozen tundra that are sitting on top of billions and billions of tons of methane gas.
Frozen methyl hydrates, and there's enough frozen methyl hydrates alone in the Black Sea, just in the Black Sea. And if that stuff goes and thaws, it will put the surface temperature of the Earth into the 200-degree temperature range.
Yeah. So I mean, people need to really come to grips with what the crisis is that we have brought upon ourselves here through the two things: the lack of higher consciousness on the part of individuals, and our succumbing to our being dominated by 1/10% of the population who are personally greedy and filled with avarice and fear, and have established a set of national security state institutions, not only in the United States, but in China and in Russia. We've got to take this opportunity of the crisis that we're confronted with to elevate our collective human consciousness. That's what we need to do here in order to save ourselves, and at the same time qualify, as back to the point of your question, Thomas, to qualify for membership in this galactic, whatever the federation is, that we need to figure out what the juridical structures are of any such institution and what the qualifications are, et cetera. But I think one of the absolute minimal qualifications is that we don't bring nuclear weapons into outer space.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things, Turning, we were mentioning about elections coming up. We have an election coming up next year. Now, at the start of the Biden administration, we thought we had support for disclosure really strong coming out of the West Wing, but now it seems to have been quelled down a bit. The support we thought we had isn't there. Do you see that with, you know, a change in regime in the White House or party, that we would have a better chance of bringing disclosure out versus where we're at today?
I don't think that a change of regime between the present Democratic Party and the present Republican Party, you know, under the governance of the Democratic National Committee and the Republican National Committee, really bodes well for any kind of immediate transcending of the national security state on this issue. I think that the only player, major player, in this dialogue right now that has the potential for bringing to bear, as soon as the 2024 election, some major conversation about this issue is Robert Kennedy Jr. That he has been pushed out of the Democratic Party by the Democratic National Committee, having proclaimed that they were going to prohibit any kind of public debates among any alternative candidates to the Democratic Party nomination for president to President Biden. And that forced Robert Kennedy into an independent candidacy, which he's involved in now. And he is one of the very few people that would actually potentially take on this issue, like he's taken on a number of other very controversial issues. But I think that the Trump administration, in waiting, if you will, has displayed in the past such a low regard for the constitutional structures of the government. they seem to view them all as anathema. You know, any type of a coherent constitutional structure in rules and regulations, the rule of law, if you will. So without going into any further critique of that administration, that I don't think that they offer much of a sound and responsible mechanism for trying to come to grips with this issue. So I don't think either one of them are the likely prospect. So I think that we have to look to the leadership in the Senate to begin with. I think that Senator Schumer is still going to be there. Senator Rounds is still going to be there. Senator Rubio, Senator Christian Gillibrand. I think all of them are going to still be in office for the entire period between 2024 and 2028. But I think that the campaign for 2028 is going to start basically the day after the 2024 election. And so that we need to mobilize throughout the entire year of 2024 to put this issue into the political discourse in a very powerful way. And so that people who aspire to be the president in 2028 are going to have to come to grips with this. So I think that we have a good opportunity to do that. And so I think that would be more the timing of this thing.
So not 2024, but 2028 is going to be the bigger time. Mike, you may have some questions you wanted to bring forward as well.
I did. Speaking of that time frame, Danny, there have been a lot of speculation that there's going to be a catastrophic or a major disclosure event around 2027. Do you have any thoughts or insight into that, if it's true or not?
No, at the present time, the people that I'm in communication with, sort of on the inside of decisions that are being made in this regard, are still trying to work with the re-establishment of this review board. And there's a 7-year timeline that they have on this. They were hoping that the process was going to start in 2024 and it was going to roll out for a 7-year period. So that would go all the way basically to 2030, 2031. So we were dealing with the assumption that the choreography of, in their words, a controlled disclosure campaign plan would span out over a 7-year period. And that we had particular timelines put in there. There were 300 days that were being given to all of the agencies to assemble all of the information and put it into digital form, and then provide it to the National Archives so that the House and Senate Intelligence Committees would have access to it. There was going to be a 180-day period from the time that the review panel got the information in their hands, when all the information that was gathered prior to the year 1998 was going to have to be made public, which was been a huge tranche of information, even though the president was given authority under the 64-page statute to restrict particular pieces of information if he were to give specific explanations for why he thought it ought to be postponed. But even that was only postponed. And so we were looking at a 7-year period. So my thought was that we were dealing with basically to 2030 would be between 2030 and 2031 is when the kind of the family jewels would start being rolled out, because they would have been postponed for the longest possible time. But there would have been a whole 7-year period of kind of rolling out this information. So I don't think that the 2027 is the because there's nothing particular that's going to be taking place that would trigger that right now. There is that I know that there's a February 3rd, 2029 date this being discussed, but that those have to be very, very aggressively investigated, because there's all kinds of people that are into saying that they're picking up messages from Mars on their molars about, I don't mean to be disparaging of all channeling, but the bottom, here, let me tell you what I think. I mean, I've been talking to Thor or, Fred from Jupiter, there's a ton of that kind of weird stuff that has to get filtered out. And the Institute's going to be doing that. And I think that we have enough credibility, over the decades that we've been working, that when we say no, you can scrub that one. That I think that's going to have a substantial effect on people saying, okay, the New Paradigm Institute says, just don't go there on that one. Here's the ones that we think are the real viable theories that we're working with here. But I don't anticipate anything specific. I've heard no information at all from the myriad people that I talk with that there's any such plan afoot that anybody affirms at all.
Oh, that's good. I think you answered the question perfectly. But I've heard that members within the current administration have said on more than one occasion that there is no planned disclosure at this time coming from the current administration. And that's something that is an obstacle that the New Paradigm Institute is trying to overcome.
That's
is
right.
That right, Danny?
That's absolutely right. I've had dinner with Joe Biden and his son, and I've had discussions with all kinds of people about this issue in the past, but up until recently, they've always assumed that they have succeeded in keeping us contained in the tinfoil hat category. Didn't want to deal with it. But now we've obviously gone across that Rubicon. We're into the point where, nobody can reasonably believe that the United States Congress would have gone to the point of passing a law commanding the military services and the intelligence agencies to cough up the information they have about the UFOs and the non-human intelligence, and turn it over to the Congress, if they didn't have reason to believe that it existed. So that's an important threshold that we've now reached, and so therefore I think that the fact that the present administration has no present plan to reveal the information is I think is sound. It is supported by the signing statement that President Biden signed when he passed this law into law by signing it the other day. He attached a signing statement saying that he was retaining the discretionary authority, which he thinks he has under Article 2 of the Constitution, to make his own decision as to whether or not they're going to continue engaging in any of the activity attempting to back engineer this technology, that he's going to exercise his own discretion about whether he'll respond to the command that's in the statute, that the Congress be briefed, that the chairman of the House and Senate Intelligence Committee and the leadership of the House and Senate, the Gang of Eight, they called them, would need to be briefed on any such activities. He has reserved his right to decide whether he's going to abide by that or not. Now, that's going to cause him some significant trouble here.
So they've been in violation of the law, hiding this from Congress for all this time, and Congress goes and passes a law, but the president is still holding off, saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to listen to you guys, although legislative does have its power over the executive. They're just like putting a finger up to
that's the status that we're in right now, Thomas, and that's why I think that should spur the Senate Intelligence Committee into holding further hearings, saying, okay, if that's the way you want to be about it, how about this? How about David Grudge Jr. Coming out here and telling you more about this? How about them showing up with photographs of the intact UFO spacecraft that they have in passing them around to the Senate Intelligence Committee in a public hearing? There are all kinds of options that we have here, and that if we mobilize our citizenry adequately and bring them to focus, I think through the New Paradigm Institute, who they know about on the Hill, and they know who we are, and that when we come forward with this kind of citizen pressure, I think that they're going to view that as putting adequate wind under their wings to be able to hold action to hold public hearings like that, so that they will see that we are mobilizing people to take action directly, not just to talk about it, even though there needs to be talked about, in holding classes on it and teaching people about it in an academic setting. All of that's important, as well as people participate. One of the things that people can volunteer for in this whole program that we're talking about is part of the diplomatic corps that we're going to be training up through courses, just like raising you up at an undergraduate degree, et cetera, in foreign policy. We're going to be providing undergraduate degrees and graduate school degrees in citizen diplomacy, of how you would go about becoming a citizen diplomat, to actually have outreach, to have direct communication with an extraterrestrial spacecraft when you encounter it. Dr. John Mack and I were involved in that way back in 1994. As people may well know, I served as the attorney for Dr. John Mack at Harvard University when he was dragged up in front of a faculty committee at Harvard for writing a major book about the UFO phenomenon in extraterrestrial intelligence. And we were in the process at that time of helping to train people who were repeated contactees with a system we call holotropic breathing, which is a systematic deep breathing set of exercises that can enable them to remain calm when this event starts to happen again to them. What we discovered is that there were a lot of very, very credible sources who had not just one or two of these contact experiences. You might figure that one would be enough for a whole lifetime, but there were people who would have repeated abduction experiences. And when we sorted out and found a number of these people whom we deemed to be credible through his they called it the peer group. It was the Project for Extraordinary Experience Research that we had in Cambridge. That what we did is we trained some of these people through the holotropic breathing experience, so that the next time when any of these little buddies showed up, they, instead of throwing things at them, as this one woman did, Karen, she used to throw things at them because she was trying to keep them being abducted. But that we got her to be real calm and do the deep breathing exercises, and she ended up being able to communicate with them. And it opened up an entire avenue of diplomatic communications with them, direct diplomatic communications, citizen diplomacy. This is something that we succeeded in doing from the Jesuit headquarters back between 1975 and 85, that, as I mentioned, we actually sent Dr. James Garrison to Russia, who actually had direct face-to-face communications with President Gorbachev, and was instrumental in getting President Gorbachev to agree to step back out of the Cold War. So we've been experienced at this diplomatic, direct citizen diplomacy activity, and we know protocols pursuant to which people can substantially increase the probability of themselves having a direct physical encounter with an extraterrestrial spacecraft if they encounter it. And I mean, as strange as that sounds, it sounds less strange now than it did 5 years ago. So
that's true.
So I think the training of a citizens diplomatic corps is part of the work we're going to be doing at the New Paradigm Institute, and people can volunteer for that and take the courses that we're going to be offering for full undergraduate BA credit, fully accredited university, and graduate school training on this. And then even if that takes 4 years or 5 years, you know, that if they were looking at a 7-year period for rolling out this information pursuant to a controlled disclosure campaign plan, we might just as well formulate that plan now. If the House of Representatives chairman of the Intelligence Committee stopped us from getting it done officially, we can do it through the citizen action. And that's what we intend to do.
No, I understand, and I think it's a very good plan. My question to you is, since you've had conversations with Joe Biden, if he's not choosing to be a proactive president, with the whistleblowers that are due to come out in 2024, he may not have much of a choice. At that point, with the degree and level of authenticity and information that will be made public in this upcoming year, do you feel that it might push him into being reactive to this at that point and dealing with it accordingly? In your opinion, Danny?
Yeah, I would assume that once the decision is made to have public hearings through the Senate Intelligence Committee, that Senator Schumer, as the majority leader in the Senate, is going to be joining with the leadership over in the House to visit with President Biden and say, look, we have the following witnesses that are in the process of, we're getting ready to bring them forward publicly to testify. And you can, either participate in this and garner the credit for it to the executive branch, not thinking in terms of political parties here, but if you want to get credit for the executive branch having agreed to participate in this process, you can cooperate. If you don't want to do that, we're going to do this anyhow, because you've attached the signing statement to the bill that we got passed and are indicating that you're going to be exercising your discretion pursuant to your own best judgments. And we're asking you to exercise that discretion in favor of supporting this public testimony. If you don't, then we're going to go forward and do it anyhow. And that's what we're hoping we're going to be able to get Senator Schumer to do in conjunction with Senator Rounds and Senator Rubio and the senator from New York, too. We're going to try to put all of those people together in a coalition and bring people over from the House side to join in the coalition, even if we have to have a group that goes and sits down with the president from both the House and the Senate and not so much confront him, but offer him the opportunity to participate in that. And I mean, it would be ideal if we could have all the candidates for the presidency come forward and participate together in that process, but that may be asking a little too much.
No, I understand. But the other senator that you mentioned was Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who initially on this subject was a firebrand, but she seems to have reversed her position to a degree, or at least gotten very silent on it. Have you heard anything from within Washington about the reasoning behind that? Well,
once a decision is made by the House and Senate collectively to only pass 24 pages of the bill, rather than all 64, all the people that are experienced political activists there are going to adjust to that and say, okay, that's where we are right now. We now need to regather over on the Senate side and come to some sort of a consensus as to what we're going to do to move forward, to take steps. I know it could have been appropriate for her to have been involved in the colloquy that took place between Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds subsequent to the passage of the statute, calling for further action. They didn't have everybody involved in a round-robin discussion, but I think that the statements that were made by Senator Schumer and Senator Rounds spoke on behalf of both political parties in the Senate. So I think that they're all going to be involved in moving forward with hearings. And as I say, I think they're going to reach out to invite President Biden to participate in that if he chooses to do so.
I would certainly hope so, Danny. That would be a good thing if they presented a united front on this topic.
It'd be good. It'd be good for the country, and it would be good for the world, I think, to see that happen. And it doesn't require the president to endorse anything more than the specific witnesses that are going to be coming forward, and then he can make a decision exercising his discretion, which he has reserved for himself in his signing statement, in a more and more forthright and forward-leaning manner.
Yeah.
that would apply pressure to the other candidates to come forward and try to match that, which we're all going to be perfectly willing to support. I would love to have this thing become a bipartisan issue that it really is all throughout the presidential election season, because it's also going to entail the senators. A third of all the Senate is going to be up for election, and every single one of the 435 congressional seats, the House seats, are all up for re-election. And so that one of the things that we're going to be exploring in this next year is making this information available to all of the candidates for public office and see who among them all wish to make this an issue. We'll see.
That would be good if this was a campaign issue for the presidential election. I think it would filter down to the congressional seats as well and the Senate. So, yeah, it would become more publicly known. I remember you were present for the David Grush testimony July 26th at the House Oversight Committee hearing. And one of the statements that you made was, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are more witnesses to come forward with much more explosive information. So moving forward in 2024, do you still feel we're on track for that?
Yes, I do. I do believe that. Yes. In fact, I more than believe it. Right. Right. I'm sure of it. Yes.
Yes, you are. Well, because I remember you were mentioning one of them at that time was also Colonel Colnell, who unfortunately withdrew. He was originally going to testify with David Grush to support his testimony, but then was pushed back by the Department of Defense and withdrew his testimony at that time. Is it possible he may come forward again at one point in 2024 to testify if they have public hearings?
I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
Okay, well, someone of his quality, and I'm sure there are others as well, if that information was to come public, the public would now take this a lot more seriously. Because, as after David Grush had testified, there has been a degree of pushback. Some of it was orchestrated from the Department of Defense to try to discredit him, which was unfortunate. He's an American hero. And if other people of his caliber come forward as well, it'll help to strengthen and reinforce the message that he wanted to bring out. And what most people, I guess, weren't paying too much attention to is it wasn't about sources and methods. He just simply wanted the truth to come out to the American people, that we are not alone on this planet. And now that's the work that you and the Paradigm Institute is taking up to get that message out as well. Right, Danny?
That's right. So that's what we're going to be doing. And as I said, I'm inviting everybody here listening to participate in this. This is an extraordinarily exciting event that's happening right here, and I want them to all get in touch with. That there shouldn't be much of an excuse for any of the 500 people or whoever who are listening to simply, when we ring off here, just to on your laptop, just go right straight to newparadigminstitute.org, see what's there, push the button that says take action, and all of that will go in to the congresspeople and the senators while they're still out at their Christmas break, and the people are monitoring their websites, and that's all going to go right straight through to them, so that when they're, going to champagne parties and stuff here in the next few days, people are going to be buttonholing them and saying, hey, we'd like to have you have some public hearings here about this. We're all excited. Tell me more about it. And then when they come back on January 3rd, they're all going to be talking to each other about how many people collared them, at their local soiree, and want these hearings. So that's what we're offering here, and that we want people to participate. It's an extraordinary opportunity. And then if we could think of anything better to do, we'd do it. So, this is the best offer in town that you're getting tonight, to really participate up close and personal in this operation.
And Dan, so your message is clear, Danny. If you want to get involved, if you want to get be part of this, reach out to the New Paradigm Institute. Go to newparadigminstitute.org, check it out, and sign up. It's your way to add your voice in to become a part of this, right, Wes?
Absolutely. And guys, it doesn't take any time. And I just went on and 3 minutes later, had sent emails to all of my Congress people for me. And then I went to the donation form and donated. So if you guys have, any change to spare, this is a worthy cause. It's also a real 501c3, which means if, depending on your tax situation, you can probably get some tax credit here at the end of the year. But I can't imagine, anything more worthwhile than supporting what Danny's doing for all of us, and all the people there that are working at the New Paradigm Institute have my thanks. So Danny, please pass along our appreciation to everybody.
I will do that. I will do that. Thank you, guys. I appreciate getting to talk to the folks tonight.
And if we can, I want to thank you for coming out tonight, Danny Sheehan. It's been an unbelievable conversation with you. We've gone over 2 hours here. You showed up half an hour before the show. It's been wonderful having you around. We really appreciate you being here. I want to thank Wes Decker for being here tonight as well.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and I just want to thank you and Mike for doing all this hard work, and once again, thank Danny for spending all this time with us tonight.
Terrific, you guys. I appreciate the opportunity, really. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Mike as well.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Danny. No, listen, Danny, you're a scholar and a gentleman, and it's a true pleasure the conversations to have with you, and for you to come out and inform the public in the magnificent work that you're doing for disclosure and for the truth. And we're very grateful for that, and we support your endeavor and everything that you're doing in any way we can. And keep up the good work, my friend. It's amazing.
Absolutely, I will do that.
Danny, I want to personally thank you very much for coming here. Thanks for coming back for Disclosure tonight. Hopefully we can get you back later in the year. It's been a wonderful evening with you, my friend. Thank you for spending your time with us. And as we usually say at the end of every one of our broadcasts, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everyone. We'll come back and catch you on the flip side. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Terrific. Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
We're clear. Thank you, Danny. That was great.
That was awesome.
That was a great job. You really informed everybody of what they can do. And it makes them feel like they're participating in this as well. So it's a dual function that is you're performing, Danny, with this.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for you. You said that you're in possession of the 8mm film from Colonel Corso.
Oh, no, I'm not in possession. I've seen it. I've seen it.
Well, you said people could come to the